All right. First up, we have my debate partner the other night, Martae. How you doing today, man?
How's it going, man? I'm doing swell. How are you?
Good, good. I like your background there. It's looking good.
It's not too bad. I'm barely getting set up, so I don't even have a shift, a night shift or anything. Barely getting started up, but I'm glad that you're online right now because I just wrapped up it was an hour-long segment of Brian Johnson, Chicago's mayor right now. The issue that I have right now is he's blaming Trump for fomenting violence when really that's not the case that's going on right now. I do have a question right now because he's not allowing law enforcement to protect our ICE agents in their city, and he's allowing them to face damage. And then he's now making this a racial issue, saying that because of the foundational blacks that are in the city, you guys should really support me because Trump is coming in to cause destruction for you guys and cause bigger chaos for you, when really he's coming in to provide safety and to let ICE do their jobs. And really, this is creating such a divide that it's almost tantamount to some type of civil war. Do you think that this is really something that's spreading? Because I know Gavin Newsom isn't really helping out at all. He's refusing as well, too, fighting tooth and nail. And now you have Brian Johnson in Chicago not helping out at all. This is almost tantamount to treasonous action, I think, too, not supporting ICE. We're starting to see this. Do you think that this will be something that will grow stronger in time or decrease?
Well, so let's start with Johnson. So Johnson, Brandon, I think his first name, is the mayor of Chicago.
Brandon Johnson.
This guy is just as big of a race hustler as you'll ever see. He's been terrible for the city of Chicago, but what he could count on is just saying, but it's all the white man's fault. It's all Trump's fault. It's all Republicans' fault. And so as he does nothing and there's corruption in the city, and the economy of the city struggling, and crime in the city struggling, and his polling numbers were going down, he's going to go back to what he knows. And what he knows is blaming evil white Republicans. That's it. And so for him, this is a way that he could get the national spotlight on him. He's able to be like, I am a martyr. I'm willing to sacrifice. If I go to prison because of Trump, but I won't leave ICE in here. They're the Gestapo. They're kidnapping people. And then he makes it racial specifically to blacks. And it's like, they're rounding up illegals and next it'll be vanfuls of black people.
Yes.
And, that's sort of, now we remember that in Chicago, we just had two incidents the other day. One of them I've yet to see a lot about. That was the video that we saw, though, where there was an actual ICE vehicle, it looks like, and you had someone ram it and was attempting to run it off the road.
Yes.
There's video of that. Now, the other one is the one that was more serious that was talked about, was when ICE actually deployed their firearms. And what happened there was you had a group of cars that surrounded one particular ICE vehicle, and there was a woman in the passenger vehicle who'd been riling up sort of anger against ICE, and she had a firearm. So law enforcement, anytime you're using first off, just to be clear, I'm no lawyer, but I'm 95% this is likely the case. If you're intentionally smashing someone's vehicle with your vehicle, I believe that's like kind of attempted murder or assault with a deadly. It can be.
I was in law enforcement for 13 years. And that's the thing, though, is as an agent myself prior, you're wielding 1,000-pound weapon at your disposal. So I think that, yes, you're harming lives and also civilians, too, as well, too. This is why we have so many different policies as far as like speed chases, things that we can do. So you also want to mitigate damage and limit this. The problem with this is that I also have is that because police weren't helping out or aiding, you're also creating more violence because now the city's almost feeling like they have no assistance at all. He's literally, I think, artificially creating this racial divide because he's saying, well, the police aren't going to help because we can't intervene because we can't get in front of ICE help. So he's creating this artificial racial divide by saying that, hey, there's nobody to help you out. I am your savior. And he's creating this issue. That woman, by the way, went to the hospital with gunshot wounds as well, too. And the other issue that we have is ICE can't perform their duties at all. So now we have like kind of a standoff of sorts. And the police, Superintendent Snell, I think his name is also declining to help as well, too. He's really using slick language. So in one side of his mouth, he says something like, hey, if they're boxed in by cars, I trust them to do what they do, while with a smirk on his face because you're not doing anything to assist either. It's hand in hand. He's working with
Yeah,
Brandon
and
Johnson.
it's a dangerous game, like because like I remind you, this meets what the left's definition of insurrection was that I debated over and over again. It
Yes.
is people gathering for a singular reason, right? So they're all there for the same reason against ICE to prevent execution of a law or something like that. That's clearly what they're doing, going after ICE for deporting people, using violence or intimidation. I mean, the attacks on ICE, the shoving, the yelling, the screaming, the spitting, that's all attacks and intimidation. Certainly ramming people with your car and for a public purpose to change the law. This meets the definition. Now, they tried to remove Trump from the ballot because he said fight like hell. And they're like, that's him engaging in an insurrection. Meanwhile, we have police officers, people in the chain of command police, basically telling the police to stand down in Chicago from helping ICE as they're being attacked. Then you have Pritzker, who is the governor, saying like, oh, it's blown out of proportion. No big deal. ICE isn't really being attacked like this. Then you have the mayor saying, we're not going to even allow ICE in here. And like, basically people need to resist them. This is literal. If this is considered an insurrection based on the definition that the Colorado court tried to use to keep Trump off the ballot, this would definitely be politicians, the mayor, the governor, engaging in an insurrection. And yet none of them give a shit. No one on the left cares. The Democrat. So to answer your original question, so Johnson certainly, he is an untalented politician. Believe it or not, Gavin Newsom's much more talented than someone like Johnson. Johnson has one card. That's racial grievance. That's it.
Yes.
Incredibly untalented. Incredibly just a buffoon with a chip on his shoulder, but that shit flies, right? Particularly in areas that are heavily Democrat, that are heavily minority. They're going to buy that. And this is one of the reasons that Trump's been such a boon for the left, because they've sort of built their entire Democratic Party on this sort of fractured identity politics that doesn't make sense the more you think about it. Like, why would the party of Islam also be the party of LGBTQ? It makes no sense, right? Like, why would traditional feminists be in a party with trans people? It doesn't make sense, right? And there's a lot of Black Americans are actually socially very conservative. In fact, if you remember the reason that, what was it, Prop 19 or whatever, the first sort of gay marriage suggestion on the ballot in California, the reason it failed was because blacks voted against it by like 92%.
Yeah, they fought it.
Black folks don't, by and large, the numbers of acceptance of LGBT issues are less in the Black community. And there's an awful lot of Black people that are very Christian, that are very spiritual. And so you're like, well, why is it that there's such a coalition of Blacks with the Democratic Party? And there's a lot of reason that I could go through with this. It's starting to change a little. Trump cut into that more than most Republicans. Nonetheless, it's easy to pander, and it's easy to say you're a victim, that everything's racist, it's out to get you. And so now we can see how these mayors like Johnson in these Democrat-controlled cities where Democrats have controlled them for years and years, when things are getting worse or they're not getting better or whatever, it's like, but it's that boogeyman. It's because of the federal government. It's because of white racists elsewhere. It's all their fault. That's what Johnson's doing.
Newsom,
it's
an artificial construct that he's creating, because here's the thing, though. In one side of his mouth, he'll say something like, hey, Trump's denying resources because we had this redlining issue that's happening right now. But in the other side of his mouth, we can see that he's saying, well, no, I don't want Texas to send resources here as well, too. And I don't want ICE to come in here and do their job. Well, that's the thing, though, is like, you're complaining about redlining when really the other day they had a lady hit in the head. I think she hit her head on the concrete and was taken advantage of. I don't want to say the R word here, but we all know what that is. And it's like, you don't want to complain about this when a reporter the other day was saying, hey, Brandon Johnson, this lady was hit in the head and taken advantage of by a grown man who was an illegal immigrant on the side of the road. Aren't you going to contend with this? What if this was your mother or something? And he really deflected out of this and didn't want to answer this. And in the same breath, he mentioned resources for redlining. Well, we all know where his priorities are. And right now, he's a political buffoon when we talk about his position in his mayoral office. It's ridiculous.
I'll say this. I think that even though it's sort of an 80-20 issue, the Democrats have nothing. Their lessons, if you looked after the election, so we're damn near a year in, 11 months out of the election. And what was the diagnosis? And what the left said, okay, we lost. Why? And when you watched them, it was just like, because racism. That's why. Because racism. And it's like, they didn't seriously sit down and go like, okay, where are we losing people? Right? Some of them tried. But the problem is, the base is the most vocal portion of the base is so radical on so many issues at this point that if you want to be more of a centrist like Democrat and be like, look, okay, let's steer this ship back into a little more sensible so that we could try to be a little more mainstream and win elections, you're going to get attacked.
You're going to get exiled.
Even people like Cenk Uygur. Now, I watched clips from the Young Turks where Cenk's like, listen, maybe it's time to cut back on this trans shit. Like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have biological. And they're like flipping out. How dare you? How dare you say that? Like, we're just going to leave these people suffer. This is the civil rights movement of our time. And illegal immigration's like that as well. Now, with this particular issue, it's basically an 80-20 issue in the sense that people wanted the border secure. Now, it's a little less popular than that, but I still think the majority of people want mass deportations. What that means, though, is very different to huge swaths of people. And so this is the issue. The Democrats need these illegals. They need them. They fully intend to eventually give them voting rights. They need them for the census so that they get more seats in Congress. They need them to be potential voters because they know that their policies are shit. And so they have to fight tooth and nail to keep these people, which means they have to be against Trump. And they don't know what else to do than to play the Trump's an evil dictator racist game. And so I'm not surprised to see Johnson say it. I'm not surprised to hear any of the Dems say it, but the fact that Gavin Newsom is playing that game lets you know more where the main thrust of the Democratic Party is. Newsom is probably, at this point, the front runner for a possible Democratic candidate for president in 2028. And so to see him and the pushback on ICE that they have, that really lets you know where the Democrat. And the other thing is Newsom, unlike Johnson, Newsom's very much listening to the focus groups, trying to make slight adjustments. He's trying to make himself, even on the trans issues, he's trying to rewrite history like, hey, I'm just the meme guy. This was a dude who proposed a law in California to make it illegal for people to use like Photoshops of you and AIs of you. Now his Twitter is doing that constantly, right? So he's trying to come up and it's like, hey, I'm just this hip, cool guy. I'm not uptight like these, Republicans, blah, blah, blah. And so for me, I think it is going to get worse. I think that you are going to see a crescendo building. And ultimately, what the Democrats are hoping happens is that there is a bad altercation between ICE and between someone. They want an ICE officer to have a bad shoot. Then they could rally and say, that'll be their George Floyd. You see, look at what Donald Trump's Gestapo did. They shot down an innocent man in the street. Never mind that we see the mass attacks against ICE almost on a daily basis now that they're basically silent about. They know that the law of averages are, if you demonize this group of law enforcement, if you allow attacks on them with basic impunity in all of these places like Portland, Seattle, Chicago, LA, etc., eventually the law of averages will be, with that many violent interactions, people will do fucked up shit on both sides. And that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for something that they could latch onto. And when it happens, you're going to see a national movement of even more centrist Democrats saying, enough's enough. ICE is the enemy. We now have to face them as an enemy.
I do see a shift in America right now that's happening in black culture right now, as far as like our conservative blacks, and that's happening. And there's like kind of almost like I wouldn't say grassroots at all, but I'm starting to see a cultural shift that's happening right now in social shifting groups, and especially the circles that I'm even in. So if you look at minority communities, they're sick of illegal immigrants being in these communities, and they're really tired of this, and they're vocalized about this on social media. You could see this all over Twitter and everywhere else, and they're really outspoken about this. Mind you, back to Brandon Johnson, by the way, we can also see this, and this is kind of like mild pushback, but not really pushback at all. The problem with this is though the guy's had a less than 10% approval rating, and it's funny because ironically, he was pro defund the police, but now when it comes to police, you couldn't foresee this happening as a citizen. So I actually blame the stupid people of Chicago, some of the people of Chicago too, because he had been voted in, but how? Less than 10%. So it's like what you
see is
it's crazy.
This is what happens when you see districts where there's zero chance of the other party winning.
Yeah.
Right? Normally, the way, in general, this is a gross oversimplification, but this is generally the rule. If you're in a district where you know that you're going to easily win, I'm sorry, in your primaries, right, you're becoming more to the fringe, and in the general, you come more to the center. And the reason for that, think of a presidential election, the country's roughly 50-50. And so in order to win your primary, your base is going to want someone who's staunchly liberal or staunchly conservative. So you make yourself sound very staunchly conservative or liberal. But then that could be too extreme for the general election and now the centrist that you're going to have to get. So you sort of claw your way back. Well, what happens when you don't have to claw your way back? What happens where it's like whoever wins the Democratic primary 100% guaranteed to win the election? Like, well, you get people like Johnson, right? And so you just run the most extreme person. And in a city like Chicago, what's that? It's racial politics. Whoever has the best racial politics. Now, it doesn't matter that you get in there and everyone hates you. You just drum up some scandal. Racisms. See? It doesn't matter that objectively my policies are shit, that crime's not getting any better, that the economy's not getting... It doesn't matter because it's racism. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll give you the final word on it. But yeah, I think it's a great topic, and you're right. Like, it's going to get worse. And I do predict that there's eventually going to be a violent altercation, and that's going to be a flashpoint, and we're going to see some more George Floyd type shit. That's what I think is going to occur.
So I'll wrap this up real quick because I know you got another person waiting. So, I mean, it almost sounds like the debate that we had together the other night where I asked if you know, he had not passed away, would he have as much influence as... So that's the thing, though, is like, I'll tell it. And so if you think about it, if you talk about the flashpoint and the bubbling over of society when it comes to racial propagandization by Brandon Johnson, he's literally uttering that right now. But I do believe that there's kind of an overcorrection of this to the point to where people are starting to get tired of this, and this race card is starting to die. You got to come up with new material, and black people are not buying this anymore as a culture. But I'll leave that there. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks. Always good to see you, Rob.
Yeah, Martae, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. You have a good one, man. Yeah, good call.